Um, I think we're as good as we're gonna be. Sean,
By Benjamin Hart.
that's me,
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
and by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. IPC. IPC.
IPC.
IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you.
Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast, also known as the IPC. We are broadcasting live right here on Fandom Empire on YouTube. Yes, it's Friday night once again. And we are broadcasting because some Friday nights we are not broadcasting because we are a bi-weekly show. It's kind of weird, but just roll with it, okay? Just roll with it. This show has been around for a long time, and it's been a little weird the past little while, but I think the show has been better than ever. Unfortunately, my good friend and co-host, Mr. Zach Arnold, could not be joining us tonight. But I think we found a good replacement. I think we got a really good topic discussion tonight to get into very shortly. But before we get into that, of course, introductions. First of all, my name is Ben, and joining me, as I said, not Zach Arnold, is my good buddy, our good buddy, Mr. Steven Schinder. Steven, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good to be back again and to talk about what is really a movie I have so many thoughts on. It's just, we'll get into it. Yeah.
There's a lot of thoughts. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts about this movie.
Oh yeah.
And I reached out to Zach. Even though he couldn't be here, he had a lot of thoughts too. We have a group chat between myself and Jake Damon and Zach, and they were lighting that up before I could even see the movie. They were about to spoil me. Thankfully, they kept it under wraps and they didn't spoil anything for me. Thankfully, but they have a lot of thoughts too. And I'm gonna try to get at least Zach to send in a voicemail. So look for that somewhere in the audio version. That'll be an audio exclusive for you guys. That's a little incentive to go listen to the audio version and watch the video version. This movie happened, and I've been anticipating this movie for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that, pandemic, all that kind of stuff happened. And, I think it was delayed a couple times, as is everything. But, hearing, watching the Planet of the Apes movies and getting into those movies and realizing, the brilliance that was that Matt Reeves, someone who I really admired as a filmmaker, and hearing that he was going to do the Batman, I'm like, okay, it's been a while since we've had a true Batman solo flick,
Right.
And
as opposed to Affleck.
And look, there's a lot of Affleck I genuinely enjoyed. It genuinely,
right.
I liked Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm one of those people.
Oh yeah.
And I even liked some of the stuff that they did with him in cameos, stuff like that. I think he was genuinely a good Batman that I enjoyed. But it was a different take. It was different things. It was a different Batman, a aged Batman that's been through so much, and DC Universe was setting up as this stuff has happened. We haven't seen it yet, but it's there. This implied history with Robin, all this kind of stuff. A lot of interesting stuff that I wish we could see, honestly.
Yeah.
Still. And now he's still coming back. We got Michael Keaton back. There's 3 different Batman going on.
Yeah.
Down here. Right now, we got 3 different Batman on the screen. How is this even possible? I don't know. But going back to basics with the Batman, just starting all over, DCEU be damned, here we are with a completely new reinterpretation of the Batman character, and I was very impressed. I'm not making any bold proclamations. I'm not saying this is my favorite Batman movie of all time, but I think it did its job and it accomplished so much, and there's so many good things to say about this movie. But and we'll try to right off the top, we'll try to keep it spoiler free, just in case anyone's
Right,
sticking
yeah.
around that hasn't seen the movie yet, because it hasn't been out for about a week now. So if you're not caught up, I don't think there's a ton of things to spoil per se, but there is a good bit of things that, like, if we talk
Bruce
about
Wayne as Batman.
oh my gosh. So yeah, we'll refrain from getting into deep discussion and spoilers for the next few minutes. But just right off the top, Steven, I want to get your thoughts. I don't think we've really discussed this at all. What were your kind of initial impressions of the Batman after seeing it?
Right. So for people who don't know, Batman is my favorite superhero of all time. And it's
Wow.
probably the superhero I've read the most comics of, and perhaps consumed the most like animated media from out of all the like superheroes. So yeah, I really love how this movie tapped into the detective side of Batman. And, just to go on a brief tangent about Matt Reeves and his filmography, like I'm like you, like I got into his stuff with the recent Planet of the Apes movies. I loved the classic Planet of the Apes movies. The Mark Wahlberg one, not so much, but the recent,
yeah,
but the recent trilogy did such a great job balancing references to the classic stuff while also creating its own path and keeping it fresh. And Matt Reeves directed the last 2 of the 3 films of that trilogy. And for me, I feel like each of those films got better than the previous one. Like I loved all of them. And he's been on such an interesting trajectory. Like I recently, within the last month or so, I watched a movie called The Pallbearer, which is his first feature film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it starred David Schwimmer. It's kind of a dramedy, I guess, but David Schwimmer's character is so unlikable, and like he's stalkery, and like the affair that he does with someone. It's just it's a bad movie in my opinion.
Wow.
So to see that was Matt Reeves' start, and seeing how he went to, well, I guess the first thing I saw of his was Cloverfield. I didn't really know him that well back then. That one is fine. Like I think it's a one and done watch. Like, the shaky cam, I can't like rewatch it very much. Like 10 Cloverfield Lane was the better film. Like it's pretty much universally felt by the audiences. Mm-hmm. But yeah, seeing how he went from what I consider a frustrating movie and then to an okay movie. I haven't seen Let Me In or whatever that one horror remake he did was called, but Planet of the Apes, phenomenal. Dawn and War, those are the ones he did. And so when he was announced as the director for The Batman, I knew we were in for something special. And I was surprised, like reading up the behind the scenes stuff of how Warner Brothers basically just let him do what he wanted. They presented him with this idea for a Ben Affleck solo movie because Ben didn't want to direct it. He thought he wouldn't have fun directing it. And so Matt Reeves sees the script and he's like, this is a valid interpretation, but it's not what I want to do. He wanted to do a younger Batman like 2 years into his career, and there was like no resistance apparently from the studio. And it's like, wow, like he has like so much, like they played ball with him rather than the other way around, which is so surprising to me.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's it is interesting how their whole approach to this, and just giving Matt Reeves the keys to the kingdom, basically, and do whatever you want. And I was looking forward to that eventual like Batfleck solo movie. Like I was looking forward to like seeing what Ben Affleck could do with and do something with maybe a more of a mystery, less of a action thriller like the Nolan films were, but more of a down to earth, grounded thing, but still in the kind of the DC universe. I still like the DC universe. I like what they're doing with it. Just got done watching Peacemaker, and I think that's was an incredible show, and how it expands the universe and does stuff with the whole DCEU is just hilarious and great. But I think pulling yourself out of it, and really like I go back to like you have to ask yourself at this point, why another Batman movie? Not a sequel, not a Ben Affleck movie, not a spin-off, not anything. This is a completely, start over from scratch reinterpretation of the Batman mythos that we've seen feels like a dozen times at this point. Why are we doing this again? And I think anyone that is not that into Batman or just vaguely watches them from time to time, I think that would be a good question. I think this movie does enough to justify his existence, to do enough to say, hey, this is why we're doing this. This is different. And it is very different. I think that's the biggest thing that sticks out to me after seeing this movie is the fact that it is so unique and how it approaches the character, how it approaches all these characters, and the fact that it's I think the longest Batman movie.
Yeah, probably. It's like 2 hours and 56 minutes or something.
It's gotta be the longest. If you're not counting Justice League. But it's the longest Batman movie that's got Batman in the title. But it is different. And I'm saying this as someone who I think generally I grew up with the Nolan films. I grew up with those movies there and look at The Dark Knight as the absolute gold standard in just movie making in general. I think it's a perfect movie. It's an incredible feat of filmmaking, and it's a great movie. And it's really a thrill ride of a movie. If you took The Dark Knight, if you were to make it into a roller coaster, it would be the best roller coaster. It's just ups and downs and thrills. It's got everything you want from a movie. And I think ultimately, even I love Batman Begins and I like Dark Knight Rises. I think ultimately we kind of toe the line of here's Batman, but let's make him grounded. Let's make it more of an action movie. There is some mystery in it. We're trying to solve something, but that's not a really core tenet of that story. Whereas this movie goes full tilt into it's a detective mystery story, noir, whatever you want to call it, and it's not necessarily reliant on an action beat every 5 seconds.
Right.
It is there's long stretches where it's just people talking. It's capturing. It's really great. The performances are incredible. I love it, but I'm not sure if a kid wouldn't be totally bored out of their minds. Why isn't Batman punching someone?
This feels less for kids than the Nolan films, even.
Right. I think there's enough. I don't know. I don't know how kids. I don't have a kid. I haven't been a kid in a while. I don't know how kids watch movies. I know some kids are really chill about just watching anything they want. But I think for me as a kid, from when I can remember, it's I kind of was living for those action beats, and I really wasn't getting into the deep plot. And when it comes to uncovering a systematic governmental, conspiracy that involves, all these different things in the city
corruption.
Of Gotham, corruption and all this kind of stuff. I'm not sure a kid's going to get a whole lot out of that. I think they're just going to be oh, Batman's trying to figure out a mystery. I don't know what's going on, but whatever. And even for me as an adult, there's a couple moments where I'm wait, what's going on? Are they chasing somebody? They got that guy. I don't know I'm confused.
Yes, same. It's you have to remind yourself of what they were doing before and why they're doing it. But it's still an engrossing mystery. This is very much a detective movie, a noir movie. It kind of reminds me of the 90s movie Seven, which it might be kind of difficult to watch now because Kevin Spacey, big yikes, but it did have that movie's vibes in terms of the mystery and how dark it was. And some people even compared Riddler to the villain from the Saw movies, Jigsaw. And I know you're not into those types of movies, but the recent Saw spinoff, which is titled Spiral, tried to be like Seven, but it didn't. It wasn't that great. Whereas I feel the Batman did much better, like in every way, trying to capture that sort of vibe and do it successfully.
Yeah, it's like it's doing, like I said, something different. It's trying to be something. It's not just, this is not a superhero film, I don't think. I don't know if it could really be classified as that. It has a superhero in it, but it's mostly Batman, going to crime scenes and trying to solve a case and solve this great mystery. And sometimes he has to punch people to get what he wants. That's basically the movie. And it's great. Like, I think, the whole detective side, the whole Sherlock Holmes in a bat costume, that side of Batman is something that has not been seen. Like, you have I think it was a Dark Knight. I think he does like the whole, like, with the bullet, and he like examines it. It doesn't make any sense actually in the movie, but it's like it's the one bit in the Nolan films where, like, hell yeah, he's doing like detective work. There's really not much else other than that. And then you're dealing with, the Joker, which is a character which was brilliantly done, but also characterized as, this guy's just nuts. Do I look like a man with a plan? Like, that's the whole thing with thing. And obviously, again, he did have a plan, but it's more, some men just want to watch the world burn. That's the whole thing. Whereas the Riddler actually has a plan, without getting into it just yet. He's trying to make a point. In a lot of ways, he's a reflection of Batman. And I think that whole idea of this young Batman who's coming into his own, who's just starting out, who's still probably, even though it's been 20 years, still that vengeance, that anger, that sadness is still fresh for him. And, coming off of that, I think he's not sure what to do with it. And I think ultimately he kind of sees himself in the mirror. He sees kind of the fruits of his labor in regards to inspiring people that, don't need inspiration, that, are taking the wrong message from him. I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's great theming.
Yeah, he's basically like, I am the shadows. Yeah, for those listening in audio, I just put on a Batman cowl. So yeah. But yeah, like this, you made a good point. Like, it doesn't feel like a superhero movie per se. I still think it is a superhero movie, just not as much like the conventional superhero movies we think of. Like, we have had noir comic book movies before, like Watchmen, Sin City, Dread, but this feels even less like typical save the world type of thing than even Watchmen was, which is like really fascinating.
Yeah, and I need to address Joel in the chat. Unfortunately, I can't put your comment up on the screen right now, because we'll try to do that a little bit later. But he sent us a $5 super chat. Thank you very much, Joel. And he says, Batman Mask of the Phantasm was the last theatrical movie to be a full-on detective movie. I've not seen that movie. I know it's an animated movie, right?
Yeah, it's part of the Batman the Animated Series universe. Like, it came out in 1993, so it's part of the DCAU. It's a really good movie. Like, Joker is also in it when he doesn't really necessarily need to be in it, but it's still like a really good movie. It's really high up there.
That's great. That's great. I mean, interested to. I've heard so many great things, and it's been brought up so much, especially now that the Batman is out, and it's kind of going into that territory that the live action stuff really didn't go much into at all. And it's a theatrically released. I didn't know that. That's crazy. I think most of them are like straight to DVD or Blu-ray or digital or whatever these days. So like,
yeah, there are a bunch of them. So like, good luck ranking all of them. Like, I'm not even gonna try that. Like, there are lots of good ones.
All right. Well, I think we can start getting into some spoilers. I think we've kind of we've talked a little bit, first impressions, whatever. if you have not seen the movie, I definitely would go out and see this movie. Like, obviously make sure it's safe, don't do anything stupid, but if you were able where you live to get out to a theater, go out, or just avoid spoilers, because apparently it's going to be on HBO Max in like a month. So
Yeah.
so if you're not comfortable going to a theater, that's perfectly reasonable to just wait for it. And I think if you've lasted this long on spoilers, you'll probably be okay. But definitely don't listen to what we're about to say, okay? Don't do that. Come back. Bookmark this video, stash the podcast aside, and come back after you've watched it.
Yeah, just download it on a floppy disk, tuck it into your pocket for later.
Yeah, do some, and then like hide it from yourself and do a little detective work, turn it into your own little mystery, eh? Yeah, okay. Let's just dive right into this, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and let's start off by just going through the characters. I think, let's start with Batman himself, Bruce Wayne, and I hesitate to even say Bruce Wayne because
Right.
Robert Pattinson is playing Batman. This is a person that is he's not functioning as a human being. He's just being Batman, and if he's out in the day he has to wear sunglasses because his eyes don't adjust. Like, it's crazy. I was I think this is a different side of Batman in regards to, and kind of more illustrates the whole idea that I've heard for years, which is like Batman is the character. Bruce Wayne is the mask. Like, Bruce Wayne is kind of the fake identity that he takes. Batman is his true self. And I think it's never been more evident than in this movie.
Yeah. I kind of expected this. Like, around the time Spider-Man No Way Home came out, they showed that, like, the way Spider-Man's arc ended, it's like he's back to basics, back to the Spider-Man that people are used to in other media. And so I thought to myself, like, after seeing like more Batman marketing, like, I thought to myself, they're probably going to have Bruce Wayne at a place where he's not quite the Bruce Wayne we're used to just yet. And they even touch upon it in the movie. Like, he's not doing much philanthropy. He's still brooding over like what happened in his past. Like, I think traditionally Bruce Wayne is the generous billionaire that we know, like, by the time of his second year. But I mean, realistically, like, it'd probably take a while. And even though Pattinson doesn't play the Bruce Wayne we're so used to, like, in that fashion, I can still see like the seeds of like he's realizing that he has to become someone who gives more hope. And he sees like this negative image of like rich people, which it's very believable. Like, people have those opinions in the real world, and so you can imagine that he's gonna try to do what he can even without the Catwall, like day and night.
Yeah, it is interesting. I just love the idea that like this is maybe the most realistic approach to Batman.
Yeah, even more so than the Nolan films.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the Nolan films were trying to be very grounded, but still, you had him like, very, there was still a little mysticism to it. You had the Ra's al Ghul stuff in there, him being trained and all this kind of stuff. Then you have this really big suit, and he can't turn his head still, and all this kind of stuff, at least at first, that whole thing. And then having a, like, he's still a functioning adult. He's still like this playboy, whatever, and he puts it on strongly at certain points. I bought this hotel or whatever else.
Yeah, trying to act all arrogant to sort of throw off the scent.
Right. So he does all that. I think Christian Bale still, like, being able to play both Batman and Bruce Wayne, I think he does it brilliantly. But Pattinson goes all in on being a realistic Batman in the sense that, okay, truly, if someone in the real world was truly like distraught enough, had enough problems that they decided to fix those problems by dressing up as a bat and going out and punching people in the middle of the night, they've got issues, and maybe they wouldn't be maybe they wouldn't be functioning quite as a normal adult. Maybe they would be just, staying in and being recluse and not appearing in plain sight and not doing necessarily logical things in regards to like, hey, I can dress up as a bat and go punch people, but I can also like do something with the billions of dollars that I have just sitting in the bank. He hasn't gotten that far yet. He's still, in a way, an immature person, an immature Batman, someone who's got maybe a few screws loose. But ultimately, also, I like his suit. Like, I like the fact that it looks like his suit looks like something that someone would have cobbled together in their garage, that it would work like that. And the best detail, I want to tell you my favorite detail about the suit. And I will get to Joel. Joel sent us another super chat. You were most generous tonight, sir. My absolute favorite detail about this Batman is the eyeliner.
Oh yeah.
Notice in other Batman, and not just Batman, but other things where they have to wear a mask, and it's clearly like, if you look, like, how a mask works. It's got to fit around the eyes. There has to be a certain amount of thing. And if you're a white dude, like Batman usually is, there's going to be a little white around it. So of course you put some makeup around it to make it all blend together and looks great. You watch like Batman v Superman, and in the nightmare sequence when Batman is captured and he's wearing the cowl and he's clearly got the makeup on, and then Batman snatches the thing off. Like, they cleverly like edit it so like the makeup's not there, even though it is. And they do that with everything. I think they even did it on Arrow and stuff like that when they would wear masks and stuff like that too. This one is like, he takes the mask off, the eyeliner's still there. That makes sense. That's logically speaking. I know it's so stupid, but I love it.
Yeah, it's not like this, right? Where you'll have a light in a room and it'll just make the eyes look dark automatically. Like, it's not like that. But right. Yeah, like the eyeliner is a really good detail. I agree. And I also really like how it hammers home that this is early in Batman's career. Like, when he steps on that ledge, he's not perching on there like a gargoyle and like he's fearless and has done this before. He's like legitimately scared of jumping, and when he tries flying and parachuting, like, he messes up. Like, he's still trying to work out the kinks of this
so hard.
Yeah.
I was like, there was nobody in my theater, but I'm like, I was like totally like, oh man, that hurt. Like, the way he came, and also the fact that he doesn't like have these magical wings. He just has a squirrel suit. Like,
yeah. Yeah, there's your Squirrel Girl movie, I guess.
Okay, I should mention Joel Davis again with another $5 super chat. Thank you so much, my friend. He says, one thing I love about this film is that this is a Gotham that is a legit scary, and I believe is a complete dump as well. Unlike the Nolan films. Joel brings up a great point. I loved Gotham in this. I loved like the mythos and everything going on in Gotham, because like, if you look at the Nolan films, there's a bit of like a disconnect, especially between Batman Begins and Dark Knight.
Yeah, it goes from like Blade Runner to just Chicago.
Like, you have, especially towards the end, the third act of Batman Begins, it's like, it's all this gothic stuff and whatever, all these back alleys and whatever. Like, it looks really cool.
So much steam, yeah.
Right, so much steam. And, it looks really cool. But then, like, you get the Dark Knight, it's like, it's Chicago. Chicago.
Yeah.
Which looks great. Like, it does looks great. Like, there's some iconic stuff. And every time I'm in Chicago, I'm like, that's where they filmed that and whatever else. Like, it's really cool. But like, it's not as interesting as like what Tim Burton was doing back in the 80s and early 90s with the original Batman movies. And I liked that they kind of had a mix of the two. There was all this kind of like, all the gothic stuff was kind of like clearly like part of their history, and it was like kind of old and outdated and whatever, and there was obviously new stuff. But then they had like their own version of Times Square. I'm always taken at it when they're like, okay, here's another city. We're in Metropolis, but it's clearly New York. It's like it's clearly like Times Square. Like they made a point to like create this like new environment, and there's a city center and all this kind of stuff. It looks really cool. So they kind of have a mix of the old and the new, and I really like that. I like that, you know, Gotham felt like a real place. It felt like a place that's been lived in, and it felt like a place you could maybe even go to, which is cool.
Yeah, with the Burton films, it was kind of a mix between 1940s architecture and Gothic architecture, and even more Gothic in Batman Returns, which is why that one is my favorite of those 80s and 90s films. And then, yeah, like in the TV show Gotham, you have like a mix of that as well, and also in Batman the Animated Series. Here, like they even call the place Gotham City Square. If I just watched the movie a second time, and they call it something along those lines. And yeah, this is like a really good looking Gotham. I don't know, it's probably not my top favorite one, but it definitely felt like Gotham.
Yeah, it's like the Tim Burton movies are very like, it's really cool, but it's also very fantastical, and it feels like kind of a fantasy world, which is fine, just fine. That's where they wanted to go with his movies, and it's great. But you know, as far as like making it feel, it kind of, I think what this movie does, I think with a lot of things, it kind of like takes a bit from all the movies and kind of mashes together in a very balanced way. It's not kind of like this is just a random city as with in regards to like what the Dark Knight did, but it's also not this fantastical element of, you know, the Burton movies. It's kind of a mix of the two, which I like a lot.
Yeah, and right from the beginning of the movie, I just love the way they start off. Like, you get a sense of how much people actually fear Batman with the bat signal. Like, I don't remember if I heard this idea in a comic or if I heard Matt Reeves talk about it. Like, when you're immersed in so much Batman media, you kind of lose track of where you heard different things. But like this idea that it's not just to tell Batman to come meet up with Gordon or whatever, it's also a warning to the criminals. And they look up at the sky and they are legit frightened. They're like running away scared because they know, oh snap, the Batman is out, I gotta get out of here. I just love that intro.
Yeah, that was great. I love that.
Yeah, we even see the people with the face paintings, the one with the half the face painted, that's probably a not so subtle nod to Two-Face, but the actor who played that person, he played Tim Drake in Titans season 3.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah, so I'm curious about like which one he did first. I'm trying to like look that up like right now. But
the Batman at this point has been filmed like so long ago.
Yeah, okay, so Titans season 3 filmed October 2020 to June 2021. So I'm guessing he probably did the Batman first and kind of got his foot in the door. Yeah, so I kind of wonder if they would want to play around with making him Robin in this as well, or if it's just like a neat little thing. Just one of those DC things of reusing the same character for other things.
I did get Robin vibes from him. I got the whole like just that they were doing something like anytime a movie lingers on a character more than 5 seconds, you know, you start thinking things. But the fact that he's like, you know, a named actor and, you know, could be, and as grounded as this is, I think the Nolan trilogy, I think subversion to like not doing Robin, I think, you know, I get why they did it, but like I would love to see a more grounded Batman tackle Robin and have him show up in some way and see how that would work in this universe.
Yeah, it would probably be a while, but like traditionally Robin becomes his sidekick in year 3, but I don't know if they would do that like that soon in this universe. Like I kind of have an idea of where they'd go next, but we'll get there later, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so hitting up another character that I really liked, and I think one that was done very well. I think probably why one of the best interpretations of Catwoman is
Yeah.
Zoe Kravitz's, interpretation of Selena Kyle. And, she does there's sections of this movie where she's not around and she kind of disappears. But where she is, she's like very prominent and a big part of the plot. And I think that's one thing this movie does well is that, yes, it's the Batman, but like Jim Gordon, Selena Kyle, they all have their places in here.
Right.
And it's not, and they're all informing Batman's character. And that's what I appreciated about her, especially, is that, not only just a great performance, but also well written, a pivotal part of the plot. Her family history is caught up in all this too. She has a stake in it. And, I think Batman and her are kind of back and forth, kind of informing each other's characters, because he's trying to stop her from killing what's his name, and but she's like, well, you keep doing this, you're gonna get killed. And you're like, yeah, you're right, Selena. He is, he's kind of on the warpath here. So like, I like their juxtaposition, and would love to see. I know she leaves at the end, but I'd love to see her come back at some point.
Yeah, Zoe might possibly be my favorite live action Catwoman. It's really close because Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton had such good chemistry in Batman Returns, but Zoe's interpretation of the character is just it's so good. They make a point of how Batman and Catwoman could be a thing, but Batman's first love is the city. And when they part ways I know we're jumping around, and I'll get back to like the earlier stuff, but when they part ways at the end, it's a silent motorcycle ride, and Michael Giacchino's score does all the speaking. It's just so sad and bittersweet. Like, even though they're probably going to see each other again, just you're in that moment and just seeing that they're parting ways. It's just so emotional. And as far as her family history, here's a little possible Easter egg I noticed. Of course, the big twist, if you can even call it, I guess for casual audiences, it's a twist that Carmine Falcone is her father. And this is something that is touched upon in the Batman comic Dark Victory, which is a sequel to The Long Halloween. Both those comics were very influential on this. Like, it's kind of ambiguous whether she is actually Carmine's daughter, but in any case, they transplanted that into that. And as far as her mother, I noticed that the date on her grave markers said that she lived from 1976 to 2004. And 2004 is the year that the Halle Berry Catwoman movie came out. So,
oh wow.
So like, I don't know if that's like a jab or if it's an unintentional thing, but in any case, I like to imagine that like Halle Berry in this universe would play Zoe's Catwoman's mother, because reusing DC actors, you could easily do that.
Yeah, exactly. So I do. It would have been, and she auditioned for the original, like the Nolan trilogy, and was turned away for dubious reasons.
It was a minor role for The Dark Knight Rises, and there are all these articles about it. But after like all the articles came out, she kind of talked about how some of what's being reported is clickbait, and people can read like what she put out, and like I guess it's another like reminder to like. I guess to like, it kind of makes me second guess some of the things I read. So, but yeah, you can see her views on the thing, and but I'm glad that she finally got a major role in this franchise, because I just loved her in this role.
Yeah, she's really great, and I think I would love to see more of her. Like, they kind of set up at the end that maybe she won't be in the next one, or maybe there's plenty of instances in movies where there's like, oh, this character bye, and then like the next day or the next movie they're back. So like, there's nothing really set in stone there.
Yeah,
But,
I mean,
you
she's going to Bloodhaven. Just give her her own spin-off movies or series set there. Like, do Catwoman and do it right this time.
yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot. Like she could totally own her own thing, and there's big portions of this movie where she's carrying it. Like she's really in the lead, and I love that. So I think going forward, it's gonna be interesting to see how they kind of weave these characters in and out, and how different these movies are. They're basically already confirmed that Batman 2 is happening. At some point, it's gonna be a
Pretty
trilogy,
much.
probably. Um, Interested to see like how the progression goes, and what characters could pop in and out. Not to jump too far ahead, but yeah, the Joker's in this too. Briefly. And I love that was, I knew that going in.
Oh, you did?
Barry Koenig's brother was like on Instagram going like, "Hey, my brother's in this movie and he's the Joker."
Oh my
And I'm like,
gosh.
why would you do that, dude? Like, so yeah, I knew that going in. I was actually a little disappointed because I was like, okay, we're gonna see the Joker. Where's he gonna show up? And then he doesn't really appear. But I like Barry Koenig. I think he could do a pretty stand-up job. I'm looking forward to seeing like what he may do with that character. But will he be in the next one? Is this kind of a long tease to like the third one? I kind of don't want them to like retread. I think it was good to like, okay, let's do the Riddler. We haven't really done the Riddler, but not in this way, not in a serious way. We did Jim Carrey, which like,
Right.
yeah, good casting, but also kind of weird. So like you have the Riddler. I like that they took this character a different direction. It's like, okay, let's talk about the Riddler. Because
Okay.
I did like this a lot. I heard some conflicting opinions about the performance and whatever else, but I think Paul Dano did an upstanding job at kind of showing someone that's unhinged.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I love the moment where he's like, "Oh, we've been working together. Like this has been great. Like we were partners." And like Bruce Wayne is like genuinely confused. So he's like, "Wait, what? What you thought we were working? Like you're a psychopath." But then it's this introspective of like, dude, you're dressed like a bat. You're
Yeah.
kind of crazy yourself. You have to look at who you're inspiring and who you're giving hope to. And he gave that to Riddler. But I think Riddler just overall genuinely a menacing, scary villain.
Yeah. I'll get back to the Joker, like probably like toward the end or something. But yeah, I'll jump into the Riddler. So Paul Dano, he does creepy so well. Like I've seen him play a serial killer in the movie Taking Lives. Like he's in the beginning of that. And he was also in the movie Prisoners, where he was very creepy there as well. And Hugh Jackman and Terrence Howard's characters suspect that he might have like kidnapped, like done abduction and stuff. So they interrogate him and beat him up. So it's kind of like he got beat up by Wolverine and War Machine and then woke up later and decided, I'm going to pick a fight with Batman. And before seeing this movie, I read the prelude junior novel before the Batman. It's really good. It's an easy read. You could get through it within a day. And it kind of shows Edward's and Bruce's lives sort of parallel and slightly intersecting. And you get a really good sense of how much Riddler hates rich people, like long before he's the Riddler. Like he's not as privileged as Bruce, and he's doing like all these street races, which like Edward really hates. How rich people just get to do all these things, and he touches upon it in that scene you mentioned, like being an orphan cramped up in a room with like 30 other kids. And like his motivation, like this is a very different Riddler from what I'm used to. My favorite Riddler is still the one from the TV show Gotham, played by Corey Michael Smith. Like he feels like a good balance of the more absurd Riddler side and the more psychopath killer side. But I feel like Paul's Riddler works very well for this universe. Like you said, very unhinged, and some of the crying and screaming that he does is so unsettling and also unintentionally funny to me sometimes, which I feel works very well with the Gotham City aesthetic here. And they make a good point of, like, without actually saying it out loud, they make a good point of how Riddler and Batman kind of seem like the same person. They both take copious notes in their journals, and like when Batman sees like Riddler's journal and like all the stuff he's written out, you can see in his eyes and his facial expressions like, oh, this guy is kind of like me in a way, and people are terrified of both of them. It's kind of a turning point where he realizes that he needs to do something different to differentiate himself from these sort of villainous characters.
Yeah, because like at the front of the movie, you have the whole dialogue, and it's great that, you know, it's establishing that like he's been doing this for a while and that people know him, especially criminals. And the great line, but also prophetic, of like when the signal goes up, it's not just a call, it's a warning. And but he ends up like realizing that he's not just scaring criminals, you know, he is scaring, you know, maybe common people, and then also inspiring the worst people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great commentary on like today's world, really, you know, especially when like nobody's really Batman. Jeff Bezos, what are you doing with your money? I don't know. But Elon Musk too. I don't know. They can't. Nobody got billionaires. Nobody comes Batman. I don't know what the deal is. But you know, it is. We all have a platform. Anyone can. We're sitting on this podcast talking to a bunch of people now. It's great.
Yeah, Riddler was doing his own streaming.
Yeah,
had like the comment section on the side.
Yeah, Riddler was a podcaster. But you know, you have to, when you attract an audience and when you attract a following, and people look to you and go like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" And obviously, I'm a podcaster. Don't take advice from me. Don't take life advice from me, okay? If you enjoy my opinions on dumb movies, be my guest, but I don't want you following me into, you know, destroying a city or something like that. Just throwing that out there. But you know, we all have responsibility for what we say, and you know, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's online, anywhere, whether it's just person to person, you know, we have a cause and effect to things that we say and things that we do. We lead by example, and setting a good example is a very important thing. And I think Batman is someone who is just basically, he's vengeance. He's all about the vengeance. He's all about causing pain to people because he is in pain. And to do that, he feels like, oh, I got to become this symbol. I got to scare people. I got to scare the criminals, which is great. But also, it's not just about that. It's not about, you know, it shouldn't be just about scaring people. It should be, you have to stand for something. I think that's what we see at the end of the movie, which is him standing for something, saving people, not just beating people up, saving people, being the hope of Gotham and spreading hope. That's a good message. And I think that's a distinction, I think, that will probably bleed over into the next movie, which is like, how does he deal with this? How does he become the Cape Crusader? How does he become the Knight of Gotham?
Yeah, there was that follower of Riddler. I think he's the guy who was at the memorial service talking smack about rich people. And when they ask him who he is, he says, "I am vengeance." And once again, you see that Batman, he's kind of setting a bad example, like unintentionally. But then when he goes down into the water and he tries to rescue people, you know, they're very hesitant to take his hand.
Right.
But then you have the child of the deceased mayor. He's the first one to come out and take his hand, and it's like that moment made me tear up a little. Like it's basically kind of like how kids can see the good in Batman and look at him as a hero, and like this is a first step to him becoming a hero to look up to. Like once the kid like goes and they see that Batman is no harm to him, like they all come out and they're like, maybe this Batman guy isn't so bad.
Right. And I love that they didn't do the origin story again. I'm glad this movie didn't start with, a couple with their kid in a back alley getting shot to death. Like, I'm glad they didn't do that because we didn't need that. And also, I think most people know that by now. And I think throughout the movie, it's kind of like, yeah, you can watch this movie and not know, if for some reason you were born on another planet and you have no idea who Batman is, you can kind of watch this movie and go like, oh, who's this guy? What's going on here? He lost his parents. He's an orphan, whatever. You can get the gist of the story, but it is vastly enhanced and sometimes hinges on your understanding of like and knowing the Batman story. People that have never seen a Batman movie in their life know that origin story. So, and you have those constant cuts and having Bruce kind of brooding and but also really thinking about that kid and kind of reliving that moment in his life through that. And I think it may be a touchstone for like him trying to figure out where he's going to go. And, it's not just, and what better way to kind of illustrate that with someone who was probably the same age when he lost his parents.
Yeah, like when Bruce pushes a kid out of the way of the car that comes in, that like disrupts the memorial service, like that is quintessential Bruce Wayne and Batman right there. Have you seen the meme going around where it's like because Bruce's parents were gunned down in 2001, there's a good chance they were watching Shrek.
I saw that. And then there was another one that Kevin Smith retweeted, and it was, oh, they may have been watching Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Right. So I actually am kind of deep in the weeds of the chronology of this universe. So the dates that they mention, like the movie begins Thursday, October 31st, Halloween, of course, and ends on Wednesday, November 6th, which is my birthday, weirdly enough.
Wow.
And those days/dates align with the 2019 calendar. So I feel like they probably initially intended for this movie to take place in 2019. But later in the movie, there's footage of Thomas Wayne's electoral campaign, and it says it's like a 2001 ad campaign. So I guess it probably changed our minds about when this film takes place. Like it's 2021, but the days and dates align differently because I guess you could say alternate universe or whatever. So if they were gunned down 20 years prior to that week, then I think it's more likely that they were watching Monsters, Inc. before they were gunned down. Like that came out November 2001, and it actually kind of fits thematically because, Sully goes through this arc where he realizes that he and the monsters shouldn't be scaring people. They should be, helping bring joy to kids. And that's kind of like Batman's arc here.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I hope that sounds like you're right.
Yeah,
like,
that's my headcanon.
It's not in the movie, but your logic checks out.
Yeah.
And I love the thematic of they probably would have been, and I think the whole thing with Batman is oh, they were at the theater or whatever, but what family in 2001 was going to the theater? They were going to a movie theater. They were seeing Monsters, Inc. Come on.
Yeah, there was no Zorro movie out that week, but yeah, Monsters, Inc. fits.
I love it. That's amazing. That is my headcanon now. Do the Photoshop, do the memes, whatever you gotta do. Okay, so another character I want to talk about, the Penguin.
Oh yeah,
Colin Farrell's the Penguin. First of all, going back to those first set of photos of mind blowing. I'm like, wait, that's Colin Farrell? Are you serious? And then getting into this movie, and I don't know how much is him, how much is prosthetics or whatever else. I really don't, but he looks amazing, and I totally see why. Because you're like, why did they have to cast this like skinny guy and then put all this stuff on him? But then you're like, all right, Colin Farrell, you did it, man. He is so good, and they're giving him his own TV series, which makes sense. But this is maybe my favorite version of Penguin so far. He's so good.
Yeah, I think my favorite live action Penguin might still be Danny DeVito's, just because of how absurd and grotesque he is. But yeah, this Colin Farrell Penguin feels very much like a lot of the comic book depictions. So like when I look at him, I never think that those are prosthetics on his face. I think, no, yeah, that's him. That is his face. And he has that mob boss type of feel. And I love how they were able to work in how he waddles like a penguin when they have him tied up. Like that was just such a neat thing. Yeah, there are like bits of humor in this movie. Like during that thumb drive moment, I was the only person who laughed out loud in my theater because I just love puns.
I was laughing too. I was like, I cannot believe this is happening, but hell yes. Yeah, that was hilarious.
Yeah, and with the hindsight of that Penguin spinoff announcement, like it hits differently when you get to that moment near the end where you have that narration of like some criminals will take advantage of this chaos. So you have that close up of Penguin, and it's like, okay, we're gonna see his rise to power in this chaos ridden Gotham now.
It is interesting how I feel like in another movie or just in another circumstance, he would have been the primary villain, and it's amazing that he looks so good and embodies the character so well, but he's basically just a supporting cast member. He's just kind of there for a lot of it, and is kind of in the way and helps at one point figure out part of the mystery, but doesn't have a huge part to play in the movie. But I love that, and I love the idea maybe down the line, and just the idea of him being in this universe, not being a primary villain at all, just being there, being a character in this world that Batman is constantly having to go to and work with, and then chase down and kill a bunch of people on a highway, to begrudgingly to get what he wants. But that chase, man, that chase was probably my favorite part of the movie. And I love how just a convenient little ramp just opens up right in front of the Batmobile and just slides over him. It's like, I'm not even mad. That was amazing.
Yeah, when I saw that in one of the trailers, like I didn't really think much of it because it just felt kind of like a generic trailer to me. But seeing it within the context of the film, it's like, yeah, you're really into this thrill ride. It's such a good sequence, like just how it's all pieced together.
Right. Yeah. So, but I think it's pretty well done. I think most of the action is really well done. I like the physicality of the characters. I love the whole, like Batman really doesn't even use a whole lot of weapons. He mostly just like uses the weapons of other people against them. Like I love the bit where he comes down he's in the nightclub and he kind of comes down and this guy comes at him with the bat. He just grabs the bat and just like pushes it back into him. Just like, smacks him in the gut, then, whips the bat out and just pummels him. And it's just like, wow, this is a brutal Batman. And he's not pulling his punches. Speaking of pulling his punches, I love the bit with Gordon. It's like, you could have pulled your punches, dude. I was pulling it.
Yeah, I also love how Penguin, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't catch this, but how Penguin pointed out to them that El Rata doesn't make sense for like correct Spanish. Like it would be La Rata, and like that discrepancy leads them to the URL where they find Riddler's side, and it's just like a neat little detail right there, like how all these riddles are crafted.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that, like, when you're so deep into, trying to figure out something that sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, and it takes someone else to go like, "What are you talking about? That's dumb," and it gives Penguin this great moment like, "No, that's stupid. That's stupid. What are you talking about?" And just gets to school them for a bit. That was really fun. Yeah.
Right. So, do you want to talk about Gordon next or Alfred next?
I was literally about to bring up Gordon, so by all means.
Okay. Yeah, Jeffrey Wright plays a really good Gordon. Like, I still think of Gary Oldman when I think live action Gordon, but Jeffrey does such a great job here. He can be a hard ass when he needs to be, but he's also on Batman's side. And I love how eventually, like, they have that question early on of like, do you trust me? And then like later on, they're like, the only people that they trust is each other. And I just love that dynamic. But you also get a really good sense in this movie of how much the police can hate Batman. Like, we might have gotten flickers of that in other movies, but this one really hammers it home.
Yeah, it's it's a developing relationship. I think within Batman Begins, Dark Knight, like it's you see the start of it. You see they're not, they kind of learn to work together. You can see that in this one. I love the dynamic of like, Gordon has been working with him long enough to trust him, to know he's useful, and also knows that like the letters are literally addressed to him, and Batman kind of needs to be there. But I like the whole idea of
yeah, because tampering with a mail is a federal offense.
Yeah, exactly. But like Gordon is just like, he's just a good man. He's not a crooked cop. He's also very practical in the way it's just like, okay, well, we got to get Batman in here. Let's get him. Like, let's do it. And he goes on to work alongside him and will do pretty much anything, to get the job done. And he trusts Batman. And then you have the other cops, the commissioner, the actual commissioner is like, wait, what's he doing here? Like, I love the whole scene. And it's like, yeah, that is the appropriate response when you're in a crime scene and all of a sudden a guy dressed like a bat just walks in the room. Like, I know it's Batman to us, but in this universe, it's real weird. If there was someone, if there for some reason in the real world you were in a crime scene and someone dressed like a dolphin walked into the room, you're like, this is weird, guys. You realize how weird this is? You realize how dumb this is? But I just love that whole thing. But Gordon gets it done.
Yeah, the commissioner in this movie is an original character named Pete Savage, but the way he acts toward Batman, it reminds me of an older character from like the comics and animation named Harvey Bullock. Harvey is very much a foil to Gordon, and like he really despises Batman. And there's a really good interpretation of him in the Gotham TV show as well, who's like not so unlikable. Like, I really liked how the actor played him in that. But yeah, like Pete Savage felt like I wouldn't be surprised if there was some Harvey Bullock inspiration for this character.
Yeah, it definitely. I forget the actor's name, but I think isn't it Harvey Bullock that's in Batman Begins? That's kind of the crooked cop that's with what's his name? With the Gordon is like his partner.
I don't remember him in Batman Begins, so let me look that up.
Maybe I may be like mixing up my Batman characters.
I mean there are lots of characters. Yeah, it looks like it wasn't him in Batman Begins.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I'm trying to think of like who actually is that, because I know the actor was in Mando season 1 too.
Okay.
So yeah, I would have to do the research, but I don't want to do that right now. Anyway, and Jeffrey Wright, like rising star, I think, or risen star, like the guy's everywhere, and I love him. It's hard to Nolan trilogy that performance is so good, but this might be a close second for me. Like Jeffrey
Right.
Wright really, I think, embodies the character a lot. I again love to see more of him.
Yeah, I mean, Batman himself says he's a good cop, and we see that through his actions, like when he's trying to protect the new Mayor Real, and oh yeah, like he's very much, he has all those qualities that you would expect from Jim Gordon.
Right. Yeah. So and they keep talking about some kind of spin-off GCPD.
Right. So that was the
Show?
original plan. There was gonna be a GCPD prequel show, but it got canceled apparently. I don't know if they'll come back to it. It was gonna center around a corrupt cop. So I don't know if like maybe they canceled it because of, you know, current times and stuff with that. But instead, they're now developing an Arkham TV show, and it's going to have some horror elements, and that in itself really excites me. So I'm okay with that. Like, we got a lot of GCPD in the Gotham TV show, and the idea of a horror Batman spin-off show, or like set in that universe, like it appeals to me very much. Like years ago, I outlined how I would do a live action Batman TV show, and it felt very crime drama with elements of horror. It was kind of inspired by the Hannibal TV show, I guess.
Yeah.
And this movie feels like the closest to like some of the, like how I would have done live action Batman.
Yeah, it's I could totally see that. And it's just, again, it's unique, and I think it's exactly kind of the kick in the butt the Batman franchise needs in regards to moving this franchise into a different direction, but also moving into a direction that's like in line with the source material. I think it's scratching the itch and giving us something. I'm not saying that this movie, if I'm gonna watch just a Batman movie, probably gonna still be The Dark Knight, probably, or Batman Begins. If I'm being honest, but this one is a nice change of pace, and I totally understand people going like, "This is the best Batman movie ever." I'm like, I get it. You're getting what you want. You're getting something that has not been really explored in the Batman mythos, not in live action films, which is really great to finally see.
Yeah, and there are some fans who are being like, "Oh, if you didn't like this, you didn't read the source material," and just being really annoying. But yeah, like if you like any Batman media, you're a Batman fan. Just don't be annoying about it to other people, you Batman fans.
Right. I that's one thing I don't let this not a problem in Star Wars fandom, and I'm glad is not. It's just like the whole like, you're not a real fan if you didn't read the source material. If you didn't read did you read the comics? Blah 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 blah. Like, it's so dumb. It's like most people haven't read the comics. I'm sorry, they just haven't. Okay, you don't have to read the comics to enjoy this stuff, okay, or to understand it, okay. Just how it works.
Yeah.
What else do we have it? Because we've kind of gone through a lot of the characters.
You want to talk Alfred?
Alfred, Andy Serkis. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I mean, I love Andy Serkis, but like, I think he's up there as one of my favorite Alfreds. Like, and I was devastated when that package blew up. I'm like, if they kill off Andy Serkis in the first episode, kill off Alfred, like, my god.
Yeah, when that happened, I was like, I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about this if he actually died. And like, to be fair, there is some suspension of disbelief you have to have when he survives that explosion and when Batman survives like the bomb collar. But ultimately, there's so much I like about this movie that I'm okay with it. Andy Serkis is one of my favorite actors ever. Like we've talked about the Planet of the Apes movies, and he's also great in The Adventures of Tintin, and of course he's famous for his role as Gollum. So yeah, I thought he did a really good job, like with the motion capture here. He really looked like Alfred once they put all the CGI to make him look like a butler. No, I'm kidding. Um,
you just smooth right into that. Yeah, I didn't even catch it
yeah.
first.
Yeah, but I do love that they had him involved. He's kind of reluctant to entertain Bruce's new quote unquote hobby, but once he gets to like the deciphering of like the cipher or whatever it's called, he's like, oh yeah, this reminds me of my service days. And I think I'm probably making it sound like I love Gotham, the TV show, more than I do. Like it had a lot of flaws that kind of brought some of it down for me, but as far as like some of the characters that did well, like Sean Pertwee's Alfred in that show is probably my favorite. Has a good mix of the butler side and the like military experience side. But Andy Serkis's Alfred is also really good. And it's like after Matt Reeves worked with him on the Apes movies, it's like, how could he not bring him into this in some fashion?
I didn't even think about that connection. Yeah, it totally makes sense to have him involved. And I like that. It is a different take on on Alfred, and it's kind of he's not this elderly kind of loving gentleman, like with the Batman Returns and all that kind of stuff. And I think we kind of got with Michael Caine, and then I'm forgetting his name, but Batman v Superman, Alfred.
Oh, Jeremy Irons.
Jeremy Irons. Kinda sassy.
Yeah.
Alfred,
Yeah, he was like a mechanic Alfred.
Right, like very hands-on. Like Jeremy Irons was like very like hands-on in the field doing stuff. But also with like just totally done with Bruce. Just totally like I'm so tired of you going out every night trying to kill yourself with this. There's a little bit of that with Andy Serkis. I think just a little bit of that. With his like, oh, you're finally gonna be Bruce Wayne for the first time in a while or whatever else. Like he's a little bit cocky, but he still embodies more of the father figure that I think Alfred's kind of always been to Bruce Wayne, and in kind of all these, he is the person who raised him. Like he is kind of this person who truly loves him and wants what's best for him. And, there is some left turns in this movie that I really didn't see coming in regards to like the legacy of the Waynes and the whole idea that Thomas Wayne made some mistakes or maybe was a bad person. I don't know. And, Alfred trying to kind of cover for that was, I think, kind of interesting, a little bit of a departure from what I'm used to in regards to these stories.
Right.
But I think Andy Serkis delivered a really solid performance, and I'm glad he's not dead because I want to see more of him.
Yeah, like just the sincerity when he talks to Bruce about how like every day he tried figuring out who it was that killed his parents. Maybe it was just some random thug, maybe they were hired by this person or that person. And I kind of like that ambiguity of like we don't know who really killed them, I guess, and how Alfred was obsessed with it. And he just really cares about Bruce and wants what's good for him.
Yeah, it's in the Dark Knight trilogy, it's kind of addressed very quickly, in regards to who killed them. Then Bruce spends all this time plotting to kill the guy, and then he doesn't get his chance, and all this kind of stuff, and it's kind of buried pretty quickly. In just like, it's what inspired Bruce to become Batman, but it's not like the whole, kind of driving force behind his character. Whereas this one is like the whole, that story kind of hanging in the balance of like, they died under mysterious circumstances. We don't even know if really Bruce was there. Like we're assuming he was, but based on the myth, the Batman myth, but he was a kid. Who knows if he could identify someone? So like the whole mystery of like someone killed his parents. They don't know who it was. Alfred did all his research, couldn't find anything, and he's just out there. And that kind of can fuel that of like, okay, Batman's just going out there. Just any person he beats up could be the person who killed his parents. He kind of project that onto them. But obviously that's not the case, and that's not healthy. I think he kind of learns a little bit of that in this movie.
Yeah, Definitely. I've recently watched the show Pennyworth. It's on HBO Max now, like the first two
Yeah.
seasons, and it's a really interesting take. Like it shows a younger Alfred, so he's like in his 20s and doing all this military stuff. But for me, like Martha Kane, Bruce's, usually like Bruce's mother and like all these other things, she steals the show for me in that series. And Thomas Wayne is such a hilarious foil. He gets frustrated with her. It's a really good show. I recommend it for people.
That's something I didn't expect to, because when I heard they were making Pennyworth, I'm like, really? A show about Alfred? What are they doing here? And then to hear you say, like, first of all, I didn't know it was in its second season. My God.
Yeah, there's a third one on the way.
My gosh. So, okay. Apparently you're not the only person watching it. And so like, so I've been wrong about shows before, so I'll check it out. Sounds interesting. And Alfred is a fascinating character. He doesn't get a whole lot of play in anything really. So makes sense to give him more spotlight. And, but I'm hoping that, this Alfred can get some more mileage in regards to, coming back around, and, maybe he won't open packages anymore for Bruce. Just an idea. Maybe when you see like a mysterious package, you just don't open it up and just, right close to your face. Come on, man.
Yeah, that moment was kind of frustrating, I'll admit. Like, why would he do this? But like I said, it doesn't bog down the movie too much for me. It's like there are only like a few moments that I really question, but overall, I just love how like things play out in general.
Yeah, I think my only complaint would be like that scene in the church where he's like, Bruce is right there. He's right there in front of the guy, and he blows up, and like there's nothing on his face.
He's unscathed.
Like, you could get away with like, oh, maybe there's stuff on his suit you don't see because it's all dark, but like you can see his white chin is still sparkly white, and there's nothing there, and like how it's not black with soot or bomb debris or blood because the guy freaking blew up. I'm just saying. It's just one of those things you're just like what? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know what they were trying to do there.
Yeah, maybe they could have, because I get that Batman really wanted to solve this thing, but maybe what they could have done was have Gordon try to run in and pull him away a few seconds before the detonation, and he's like reluctantly dragged away. Like I think that could have worked. Because
he's got like Kevlar on him. Like he's got a bulletproof like suit. Like I can believe he can survive an explosion like that. Like in like, you have all of I think it's Batman and Robin where he like he's got this cape, he covers himself, and it's like all like fire retardant or whatever else. He keeps flames away. Like I was thinking something like that, like, oh, maybe he covered himself with his cape or something like that. Maybe that's what happened, but it's not illustrated in the movie. So doesn't work for me.
Right. Yeah. It's just one of those weird things. They kind of just roll with it.
And I think if that's like the biggest thing I can think of that I don't like, I think that's pretty solid of a movie. Like you had to nitpick like that, because the only other thing I will say, and this isn't really a criticism, it's just like an observation of like the movie's long. The movie's like it's almost 3 hours long, and it doesn't feel that long to me, but I just remember like looking at my watch going like, oh wow, okay, it's been like what, 2.5 hours maybe. There was a moment in like where Selena Kyle goes in to take the guy down, take down her father basically, Marconi, and like
Carmine Falcone.
See, you have Marconi and then you have Falcone.
Yeah, and you have Sal Maroni, like all these different names.
Man, the names.
Yeah. So she tries taking down Macaroni, and yeah.
But when she goes into killing, like that whole sequence felt like, oh, this is the end sequence. This is the end of the movie. Like they're gonna take him away, and that's gonna be it. Like no, that was not even close to the end. of the movie. But it kind of felt like that because in my head, I'm like, I've watched so many 2.5-hour movies that felt like an ending, but it really wasn't. It was almost like watching Return of the King. You're like, oh, is this where the ending? No, okay, it's not ending just yet. Okay, just hang tight.
Yeah, that half hour where there were like multiple endings. Yeah, I definitely felt that. Like there were a couple moments in the movie where it felt like it was almost going to end, but then looking at the time, it's like, oh wow, there's still much to get through.
Right, there's a lot going on, and they had a lot to think. And with Riddler, I think it was a good enough like ending. Because it does build up, and you have the walls. Apparently, Gotham City is underwater. That's interesting, but
yeah, that looks like well, I guess we'll get into like where it could possibly go next, and like I feel like that's probably inspired by the comic book Batman No Man's Land. It actually spans across a few different titles that came out in the late 90s, and basically what happens in that is like there's this earthquake that basically destroys Gotham, and I think there's martial law in that as well, and like all the different villains have their own territories, and the video game Arkham City kind of played with the territories aspect of it. But The Dark Knight Rises took inspiration from that storyline, with how Bane like blew up the bridges and like all the things that happened there. And the final season of Gotham also tried adapting it in a very underwhelming way, if I'm being honest. So like I'm very curious to see like how they'll do it in this series. Like the storyline itself is kind of a slog if you're trying to read everything, but overall the idea is pretty interesting. So like to see how Gotham navigates with now that it's like flooded, I think that's a very cool idea. Like just have the next movie spend time with that. But what do you think of that idea? And I guess I'll talk about the Joker in a bit.
Yeah, I love that. I think I would love it if like they kept this trend of like where this is a different kind of Batman, and I think I would love it if like it was something like post-apocalyptic, like almost.
Yeah.
Like, the city's like partially destroyed and all this kind of stuff. That's one of like the biggest disappointments with like Zack Snyder's Justice League is that like I liked where that was going. I like this whole like end of the world thing, and they're trying to reset everything, like all that's going on. Like that was really cool. And I would love to see a continuation of that. But like even on a small scale of like there's an earthquake and the city's kind of split up in sections, and you have these things. Obviously, it would make a great video game, because the different like islands could be like different levels or different sections or whatever. But I think a movie could do that really well too. And where we end with this movie is not great. Like the city's flooded and everything like that. It'll be interesting to see like will it pick up a few years in the future where Bruce has developed more and he's doing more, and he's learned to be Batman better, and the city is in a different place, or it could pick up right then, and maybe something else happens, and maybe there is something that's triggered by what happens that they can't get the city back to where it was right away, and stuff happens, and who knows.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about this, like in New 52, there's this sort of flashback storyline called Batman's 0 Year, where I think it was Riddler who started a flood. So I think there might be some inspiration from that as well. Like I really like how it's like amalgamating like some of these storylines. Like some are older, some are more recent, and yeah, I just love how they're like pulling all these things together.
Right. And okay, so first of all, thank you so much, Joel, again, for the $2 super chat. And also, I just got your joke. I read it like twice, and I'm like, what's he doing here? And I'm like, oh my God. So Joel's comment is sequel idea: Batman versus Shark Boy. LOL.
Yeah,
Bring back Taylor Lautner as Shark Boy. Come on, do it.
Yeah, have him play like Killer Shark or something, or King Shark.
It's King Shark. Okay. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, like I posted sometime this week of how it's wild to think how Edward and Jacob have now each been superheroes, and then Joel commented it was like Batman versus Shark Boy, and I replied with a GIF of Adam West Batman fighting a shark. I've been going through the Adam West show recently. Like it's become a comfort show for me, and I watched the movie from that, and just like seeing, that was another one that had Batman, Penguin, Riddler, and Joker, like all the same villains. So it's kind of funny comparing the more lighthearted and the more like dark crime drama stuff now.
Yeah, I heard that this movie actually pays tribute to the original because the nose piece is like more rounded, or I think the other ones were like really pointy and this one's not, and it's just like the original 66 Batman costume, where it's more of a rounded nose. Small detail, but cool that they try to pay homage, maybe.
Yeah, well, there were also live action serials in the 40s, but yeah, like the ears of Robert Pattinson's cowl remind me of Adam West's. But I don't know if it's intentional or not, but yeah, you could definitely see like bits of that evolution. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be also interesting to see like how his suit evolves. Like I said, I think I like the construction, the mechanics of his suit, that like it feels like you see the soles of his shoes are like he's just wearing work boots or something like that. Like he's just wearing, basic, shoes that someone who needs to run around on top rooftops like that needs to be able to wear, have some like gripping shoes. So like it makes sense. I think his suit is completely practical, but it's always interesting. Like, even with like Christian Bale suit, like there was a lot of improvements over the years with that one. So it would be interesting to see like the Batman 2, whatever that's called. Are they going to call it the Batman 2, or is it going to be the Batman something something?
The Batman Returns. Just make it more confusing for people.
Yeah. So yeah, that's there's a lot going on there, and we'll see where this goes. Okay, any other characters you can think of who we need to discuss? Because I'm drawing blanks here again.
Yeah, the Joker. So have you read up on like what they were trying to do with this Joker?
No, I think I'm kind of behind on that.
Okay, so Matt Reeves has basically said that this is a proto Joker. So like he's not quite the Joker yet. And he has this skin condition, which is why he, like all he can do is smile. Like I guess like there's like some skin missing there. It's like very obscured when you see him in the cell. But yeah, he said that he was inspired by Elephant Man, which it's a David Lynch film based on like a true story. It's kind of surreal. And they had also tried shooting a scene that was supposed to be like earlier in the movie where Batman goes to this proto Joker who basically serving as like Hannibal Lecter did in like the adaptation, like in Red Dragon and its adaptations, and in Silence of the Lamb and the movie based on that. Also what the role that Calendar Man served in Batman The Long Halloween. So he was basically going to consult him for this scene, like in his quest of like finding the Riddler, I guess. I'm kind of glad that they cut that out because, Batman can solve these things without like a villain's help. But this scene, like having it before the credits, like I really appreciate that. Like I do understand how people found it eye-rolly, like including a tease of the Joker. Like it's just so predictable. But I do like that it's not a mid-credit or post-credit scene, because if it were, then I feel like there'd be a lot of pressure to just make him the main villain. Like it would feel like they're teasing him as a main villain. But having him before like the final scene, before the credits or whatever, it's like they don't necessarily have to do that. He's just there. Maybe they'll use him, maybe they won't. Like, we'll see where it goes. Like, I've been talking like with another friend about how he was saying that it'd be great if they set a Batman movie in Arkham Asylum. That way you could like have all these different villains and it wouldn't feel forced.
That would be really cool, I think. And just in regards to the Joker, I think like I hope they do save him for like a later film. I'm not sure I necessarily like it feels like a little on the nose is like a little too close to like the Nolan trilogy of like, oh, you have a you get you get Batman origin story, kinda. You take a lesser known character, make him the big villain, and the Joker appears at the end, or he's teased at the end, and he's the big villain of the next movie. Like, I hope that maybe if they can keep Barry Kanan on contract, just hang on to him and go like, okay, maybe he doesn't show up till the third movie. Maybe he's just kind of a presence. He's there, he's around. You kind of hear him talking, but he's not the main player until later, until when it's when it matters. So I think that would be interesting. I would love to see them take someone like the Riddler, but not the Riddler, and kind of do their own spin on it. And also maybe I would be interested to see like a supernatural, for lack of a better term, type of villain, like a Clayface or a
or the
Poison Ivy,
Yeah, or get really obscure and bring back the Mad Monk, who's a vampire, like all the way back in 1940.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be. Hey, I wouldn't put it past them to do some deep cuts. So we shall see. Okay, we have been speculating about. I don't know. Do you have any more thoughts about what you want to see in the Batman 2? Like, I know we talked about it a lot. I know I have a few ideas, but do you have anything like really specific?
I feel like I've touched upon what I expect from it. Like with the Joker, I prefer when the Joker's backstory is ambiguous, but recent things like, the movie Joker have kind of made me more flexible on the thing, and seeing Cameron Monaghan's or Monaghan, however that's pronounced, his take on like Jerome and Jeremiah, like I thought those were really interesting. Like one was more unhinged, one was more cold and calculating, like Hannibal Lecter. So I guess I'm getting more flexible on seeing these different Jokers with different backstories. And it's a multiverse after all.
Yeah. And okay, so I'm looking forward to seeing them not do what the Nolan trilogy did previously. I would also like to see them expand the universe just a little bit. Obviously, Batman's got a huge rogues gallery of villains. It would be interesting to see, like, what other heroes might show up. Here's a question for you. Do you think we'll ever see a Superman or other Justice League members show up in this universe?
So, yeah, that's a good question. Before the Batman novel, they do mention Metropolis and LexCorp, but I don't know, like if they would ever show Superman or even just Lex Luthor in these movies. It's kind of hard to imagine at this point in time, because like we've said, this movie feels even more grounded than the Nolan movies, which is surprising. But I don't know. Like I kind of wonder, like if there would be a place for some of those other heroes, or maybe some more obscure, somewhat grounded heroes, like the Question or something like that. I think that would be really cool. Like seeing both of them be detectives working on a case.
Yeah, this definitely feels like they're keeping it strictly Batman, and this is going to be strictly Batman specific characters, villains, whatever. And they'll be more grounded. Not to say that they might not do a little bit with like magic or whatever else, but I think it'll mostly be like very grounded, things, just regular people fighting other regular people. It's not going to be, maybe a Bane. I think Tom Hardy, all due respect, his version of Bane was a little weird. And I think it would be interesting to see like a maybe more comic accurate, but also more grounded version of that.
Yeah, with Venom. I kind of wondered if the stuff Batman injected himself with might have been Venom, because there wasn't like
there's speculation about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a storyline where he kind of became a Venom junkie and it made him more aggressive. So I kind of wonder if that was a tip of the hat to that.
And it could be a hint of where the story's going, in regards to, his weaknesses. And there's a lot of talk about drugs in this, not just like real drugs, but like the whole drop head things.
Right.
They're like clearly made up for the movie, or unless that maybe is a real thing I didn't know. But like it's the whole like that whole thing could be leading to like, setting up for like a movie where it's like it's heavy on the don't do drugs, kids. Things.
Drugs are bad. Okay.
Just say no. Batman says, just say no. Yeah, hopefully it's not that on the nose, but yeah, don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Not endorsing that. Anyway, okay, so I think we're getting down to, we've talked a lot about a lot of things. I'm trying to think of like, I'm trying to look at my notes now and see like, is there anything else that I didn't kind of thing. I kind of went over my whole idea of like, yeah, this is this is doing the score. Michael Giacchino did it again.
Yeah,
100%. He did an amazing job. That just 3-note tone is going to be stuck in my head for a very long time. Like I think he did it again.
Yeah, like you have that theme that is very mysterious, like it goes dun, 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 and you also have like the elegance of, like I said, when he and Selena are parting ways, and you have that music that goes like dun, dun,
there's
dun,
the love, there's
dun.
a love theme kind of in there. Yeah.
Hopefully you don't get a copyright strike for me like humming those, but
yeah. Oh god, it really comes to that on YouTube where you like hum something and they come after you. Copyright, my god, we'll just shut down shop. Go broadcast on. We'll make our own YouTube.
Broadcast on Twitch.
Just as bad or worse.
No, but yeah, I need to listen to the score more. I need to give it more of its due. Maybe I'll like use it as writing music one of these days.
Jesse Bennett, I decided to accept spoilers. I'm here though I haven't watched it yet. Well, I think we talked about most of the spoilers, Jesse. So I don't think you're gonna get spoiled on much, and we're not gonna intentionally spoil anything. Go see the movie. We're not gonna intentionally spoil anything.
Right.
But yeah, the spoilers, the music's really great. And yeah, Michael Giacchino is a master, is a maestro of music. And this is one that I would consider like buying as a thing. I love the way he like weaves it in. It's not just like in the it's like really blaring. It's like you can hear it kind of just subtly in the background when people are talking, stuff like that, and then it really ramps up.
Yeah, like it feels different from Danny Elfman and Hans Zimmer. Like they each have their own different styles, and Michael's, while I feel like his music doesn't necessarily have its own style where you'll listen to it and think, oh, that's definitely Michael Giacchino, or maybe I haven't listened to enough of his scores, but I feel like his feels like the things he's done feels more varied than Danny and Hans's stuff. All due respect to them, they've done some great things, but I think you get what I'm saying.
No, I think Giacchino has like one of the biggest ranges as a composer, I think. And that's no disrespect to anyone, especially John Williams. But John Williams doesn't like, he's the just epic, sweeping, classical, theatrical scores. John Williams is known for that. All those things, every theme, whether it's Indiana Jones, Jaws, Star Wars, anything, it's all very different, but it's all kind of in the same ballpark in regards to like style. I think Giacchino, his strength is like he's done so many different things. He's done Lost, he's done The Incredibles, he's done Star Trek, he's done Batman, he's done Spider-Man. Like he's done all these different.
The last couple of Planet of the Apes movies. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Again. Like how many composers can say they've gone so many different directions, and I think he doesn't really have like a style in the sense that, like, I listen to that, I know it's Michael Giacchino. I think it might be actually a strength for him that, like,
Yeah.
you can listen to his stuff and he's such a broad swath of different styles of music that he can go to, that is amazing. And it's amazing that we had 2 in a row with Spider-Man No Way Home, which was incredible soundtrack, and then comes back with the Batman. He's killing it. He is absolutely killing it.
Yeah, definitely.
But okay, I think I've actually discussed everything that I want to discuss. I know as soon as I turn this thing off, I'm gonna be like, "No, I forgot that thing. I was gonna rant about that for 10 minutes, and I didn't."
Oh,
But,
here's one thing. The moment where Riddler says Bruce Wayne, and you think, oh, does he know? And it's like, I feel like it's still kind of ambiguous, but it feels
Yeah.
like they're leaning toward, oh, maybe he doesn't know. But that moment, like, it just gives you chills, and you see Bruce's eyes tearing up, like, oh, this could be the end of the Batman. It's just such a well acted moment.
That was great. That was really well done, and it kind of like the whole idea of, like, the Riddler holds all the cards, like he's in control, and that whole thing. I think that's what made him such a cunning and scary villain, is because he was staying one step ahead of them the entire time. And when it all comes down to, like, the Batman is the target of all this, like, okay, he's put the pieces together. It's still not made perfectly clear if he knows Batman is Bruce Wayne, but I got the idea that he did, but I could be wrong. And that could be something that comes up in the next movie. Who knows?
Yeah, I really like the ambiguity of it. And it's like, in the comics, he does find out in the storyline, Batman hush. And there is like a little reference to that. One of the videos of the ad campaigns or whatever, that show says hush. And so I can imagine that even if he did find out that Batman is Bruce Wayne, maybe he'd want to keep it to himself because it's somehow more fun that way. Like, he could, like, have his own, like, crazy reasoning.
That's what's this is so funny. That's what always happens with these villains. They have secret identities, and then they're like, I gotta find out who Batman is. And then they, like, find out. And they're like, oh, I gotta keep this to myself, even though if I told everyone, I could totally defeat him. Because I would ruin his life by revealing his identity. Like, Mysterio had the right idea. He was a smart villain.
You're saying Mysterio was right?
Maybe. That far, but Mysterio, like, that makes sense. You find out the hero's identity, you spoil it for them. You ruin their life. You make them
Mysterio forever.
Yeah, you make them go to a wizard to create a spell that almost destroys the world. But that's neither here nor there.
Right.
I think we about covered everything. I will say, and to answer my own question from earlier, what I would like to see in the next movie is, I think it would tie in very nicely with the theming of, like, conspiracy and the overall, like, the Arkham and the Wayne families and all this kind of history, implied history of, like, what's going on there. I would love to see Court of Owls.
Yes.
I think that would be a good storyline to kind of follow this up with, in regards to, like, because the whole idea in this movie is, like, Bruce thinks he's got a handle on it, but he really doesn't. And the whole idea of the Court of Owls is, like, it's just vast conspiracy and all these people kind of in control, and Batman's out of his depth. I think that would be a nice place to take him in the future.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Like, that was one of the best things that came out of New 52. Like, some of the Joker stories in New 52 I found lackluster by the end. Like, they'd be hyped up and then the ending would sort of just fizzle. But stuff like Court of Owls was executed very well in New 52. So that'd be a really great thing to adapt into these movies.
Yeah. I think being that it's grounded, it's a very easy thing to do. Just a bunch of people in owl masks. Come on, how hard is that? Okay, is there anything else, Steven, you would like to bring up before we jump into final thoughts and scores?
I'm sure there's like a lot more we could discuss about this movie, but I feel like we've pretty much said like all the things we want to discuss about it.
Yeah, I think we did pretty good. Of course, still time, guys. You want to drop some thoughts in the chat or whatever else. We'll try to catch your comments, especially with super chat. But I think from here, before we jump into the final thoughts, I will plug our Patreon because that's kind of an important thing here. It helps keep the lights on. And a special shout out to our friends Joey Mays and Jesse Bennett for their support of the show. They are both at the shout out friend tier. And if you join them at that tier, you have exclusive access to an exclusive group, behind the scenes info. You get to be a part of the show. You get to have influence on the show. It's a lot of good fun there. So definitely go check that out, and definitely thing. And you can, there's different tiers for different levels. And if you can only contribute a little bit, then we appreciate it. You can contribute a lot, you get something out of it. It's really cool. But every tier you get at least a little something back for it. So that's really cool. And I will say you get access to the show notes, all kinds of stuff. And even when we do a top 5 segments like we did last time, you get top billing. You're the first people to get read off. So that's really cool. And additionally, Jesse Bennett, he's actually in the chat right now, and I'm gonna talk about his show because he also put in for a little advertisement here for the Question Possible Answer podcast, which is a great podcast. And this reads, over at Question Possible Answer, we review movies while also trying to incorporate real world physics into the movie and see how much the story would change. Sometimes it's as simple as, what if this person wasn't in the movie, or something like that. For more information, check out our socials over on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for the Question Possible Answer, and of course listen on your favorite catcher. Great show. Yeah, still going on. If you need an introductory episode, go check out the Solo a Star Wars Story one, because that's the one I'm on, and it's a good episode. It was a lot of fun. And if you need a little icebreaker to get you into the show and need someone to help you get into it, because that's how I always get introduced to new podcasts. Like someone from like a podcast that I listen to goes over to another podcast, and I'm like, oh, I have a good excuse to listen to a new podcast. So that's all well and good.
Yeah.
All right.
I was on the Goonies episode of his podcast. That was a fun one as well.
That's great.
Yeah, and we've been talking. We're talking about getting together for another episode in the near future. So yeah, subscribe to that and check that out. I could kind of imagine like the Riddler question mark on like a customized version of like the podcast thing cover image. That'd be cool.
You need to take advantage of that, my friends. I think there's some Batman iconography you could take advantage of. Do that. And as Joel points out, as he's been pointing out all night, we are on YouTube. We are on Fandom Empire. You can find them at just search up Fandom Empire on the YouTubes, and definitely subscribe, because not only do you get this show, you get a lot of other shows going on Fandom Empire, news, discussion, all kinds of crazy stuff. It's great. You can follow them at Fandom Empire now. And Joel has been sending us super chats. You can come here to the live show and send us super chat, help support the show, and also you get your comment read out live on the show, definitely. And this is from a Joel. He says he sent a $5 super chat, which thank you so very much, Mr. Davis. And he says, okay, one more serious sequel idea, loose adaptation of the War of Jokes and Riddles, Tom King, Joker, Riddler story.
Yeah, I've read that one, but I don't remember if I liked it or not. There's like so much Tom King stuff that like some of it I liked, but then from like the wedding issue onward, like a bunch of it was a letdown for me. So, but
wow.
I'm sure that like maybe the movies could adapt it in a way that works really well. So yeah, maybe that'd be cool to see.
That's cool. That's cool. I'd love to see more some more deep cuts in regards to like influence from the comics. That would be really cool. So yeah, that's great. Thanks, Joel, again for supporting the show and submitting your comments. And now we are on. Let's go ahead and get into final thoughts and our planet scores. And I'll let you lead it off, Steven, if you're ready. Give us your final thoughts on the Batman and score out of 10.
Right. So this movie sucked. But
Didn't see
I'm
that
kidding.
coming.
This movie sucked. No, but yeah, I really loved this movie. Like the first watch, I was just mesmerized by the detective noir aspect, and like it's not a movie that's going to be for everyone, but it felt catered to me. And so that first viewing, my gut reaction was like, okay, maybe this is 9.25, maybe 9.5. I'm not really sure. Then the second time around, I kind of hovered over a 9 and was like, hey, do I not like this as much as I did the first time? But once it got to the third act, I was like, okay, some of the stuff I really loved was in the third act. And with like there was stuff I loved throughout, but like some of the more poignant moments I felt were in the third act, which I mean, I get confused when people say the third act was a mess, but whatever. So and like after all this discussion about this movie we've just had, I think I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for 9.5 out of 10 planets. Yeah, so it might be my favorite Batman movie, or it might be one of my favorites. Again, like upon rewatches, maybe I'll adjust like slightly lower. Maybe other titles will be higher. Well, like when I first watched it, my gut reaction was like the Batman, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, Batman Returns. And so I don't know if now it's shifted to a bit lower, but maybe it's still at the top. I don't know. I'll have to keep rewatching it. But yeah, scores can change, but I really loved this movie.
Yeah, I totally hear where you're coming from. And I think I'm going to echo a lot of what you said in regards to. I really did enjoy this one. I was looking forward to it for a very long time. And this is I think it was a culmination of a lot of things, and I appreciate where they're going with this. I'm not saying I'm in love with this whole thing. I am not sitting, calling it a masterpiece like other people things, even though everyone has a different definition of a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece.
There you go. That is like I don't really have any qualms with this movie. Really, I don't have any major issues with it. It's a long movie. It's a big movie. It's got a lot going on. It's a movie I really enjoy, but it's not one that I'll go back to as much as I would, The Dark Knight. I think in for the most part, those movies kind of speak to me more than this does. In regards to just like action thriller. This is, I feel like, a completely different genre. Those are like a thriller. Like Dark Knight is a thriller. It's just a nonstop thrill ride. This is a slow burn. And that's going to appeal to different people. And I think naturally people are like, oh my God, this is the best Batman movie ever. And I get where they're coming from. I don't really agree with them, but I totally understand, like, this is speaking to you. It's not necessarily like from an emotional level, like hitting me where I live, but I definitely see where they're coming from. And I appreciate what they're doing in regards to making something that is completely out in left field, completely apart from what we've seen before. Because if this was just Batman Begins again, we would be having a completely different discussion. And I like the fact this movie is not trying to emulate Christopher Nolan's work. It's not trying to do, Tim Burton or anything like that. It's doing its own thing. It's made itself unique in this franchise and justifies itself in as a different, unique take on Batman. And we needed that. We needed something because, you can make a billion different movies, but you make another Batman movie. Why? Why would you do that? Well, here we go. It does enough to make itself stand out and stand up, and I think easily one of the strongest Batman movies. I know there's some duds, there's some great ones. Maybe there's not as many great ones as there should be, but this is one of the great ones. And it really, I think I'm more interested in like where the story's going to go. Like, I'm not itching to go back and watch this one. Like, I know people that have seen this like 3 or 4 times in the theater. Like, that's great. I'm not itching to go back to the theater and watch this again, but I am very interested to see where the story goes. And I will 100% pay whatever money is. I know AMC is charging a little extra these days for some movies.
Yeah, just an arm and a leg.
Just an arm and a leg. So I didn't go to AMC. I probably won't go to AMC for a while, but especially for this movie. But I am like, when the Batman 2 rolls around, I'm in that seat, seeing whatever they're gonna do. So all that said, I'm gonna stop rambling and say I'll give this a 9 out of 10. I think I really did enjoy this one. I have almost no qualms with it. I didn't love it as much as a lot of people did. But that doesn't mean that I hate it at all, because I think it's a really enjoyable time. And I think if you are a Batman fan, you absolutely need to go out and see this one. This is a must watch.
Yeah, so I guess between the two of us, it's an average of 9.25, and that feels right. I feel comfortable with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and anybody in the chat, feel free to post your things. I should have said that earlier before we started this. But yeah, we got a couple more minutes. If you wanna throw your ratings down in the chat, we'll read them off and compare them to ours. But I think I haven't heard much criticism of this movie, honestly. I think most of them is positive. So I'm expecting a lot of 9s and 10s. So yeah, this has been fun. This has been really fun. Unfortunately, I think we are running a little short on time. Unfortunately, some of us have to go to bed. So it has been fun, but I think we're gonna start wrapping it up.
Batman never sleeps.
This is just getting started for you. The night is still young, but yeah, this was a lot of fun. I could go on and on and on. And I want to talk about other things too. We talked before the show. We just finished Peacemaker. I like that show a lot. I would love to do a whole episode on it, but I'm sure we're going to get to it because I already got some other stuff planned. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in the DC universe, and there's a whole lot to talk about with the Batman, because we literally spent 2 hours talking about this movie, okay? And we could have gone on a little bit longer. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, definitely tune in later. Best of luck to our good buddy Zach Arnold, wherever he is tonight. We're thinking about him and we're missing him, and hopefully he will be back within the next few weeks. He's got some awesome career stuff work going on, so we definitely miss him, but understand why he's not here and wish him the best. What else? Steven, tell the people, first of all, thank you so much for showing up. I have to say, you made this happen. You messaged me and were like, when are we gonna talk about the Batman? Are you talking about the Batman? I'm like, I guess so. I'm gonna see it like tomorrow. And you're like, okay, I'm like, okay, we'll do this. Okay, we're doing an episode. Okay, that's fine. I need to call us anyway, so let's do this.
Yeah, it was like right after I watched it, and you're like, okay, I think I'm gonna see it on Tuesday. So yeah,
I could tell by the tone of your voice, you're like, he really enjoyed this, and he has so many thoughts. And I'm like, okay, I'll be your outlet. Let's do it.
Right. Yeah.
So please, you got a lot of stuff going on still. Tell people where they can find you online and what you're doing, and all about your books and stuff.
Yeah, so people can find info on my book, Lemons Look Like Rain, over at stevenshinder.com, and you can find it at Amazon. I'm almost done with like editing the next book, Trespassing Through the Visages. I was aiming for like maybe a summer release, but I think it's possible it could be autumn, depend on how some other things turn out in life, some other affairs and whatever. But yeah, it's closer to coming out than ever before. So just keep an eye out for that. You can follow me at Steven Shinder on Instagram and Twitter, Steven Shinder Storytelling on Facebook. And you can check out my podcast, Delayed Replay, where we pretend that like the movies that got delayed came out on time in an alternate universe, and we do improv and make stuff up. The episode that's coming out tomorrow is on Minecraft the movie, a live action Minecraft movie that was supposed to come out this month.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Yeah, I recorded that one with my friend Callum. It was a lot of fun. I'm also on a podcast called Yes Shift. It's all one word, YESSHIFT. I do that one with my dad. We talk about the progressive rock band Yes. And we have an interview coming up on the 26th with one of their former keyboardists, Oliver Wakeman. It's going to be done on Facebook Live at noon Pacific that day, I believe. So that'll be a lot of fun. And we have a nice backlog of episodes over at anchor.fm/yesshift. You can see all the platforms we're on. Or if you want to see the video versions, you could go to facebook.com/yesshift. And I've also guested on Mr. Multiverse's Patreon. He's been on Delayed Replay before. He has his own YouTube channel, but over on his Patreon, he has a podcast called The Requalizers, where we try to imagine what if there was a sequel to some famous movie that came out, like what if it came out today and ignored the other sequels as just a sequel to the original. So we talked about Jaws a few weeks ago, and tomorrow we're talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street. And yeah, I was also on my friends Dylan and Keon's podcast, Inevitable, classic sci-fi podcast. We talked about an episode of the 1970 sci-fi show UFO, the episode A Question of Priorities. It's a really dramatic one, and yeah, it was just a fun and humorous conversation, so you can check that out over at decorativevegetable.com, or just search Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast on podcast platforms. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Thanks for having me on this episode. Like we said, I was really excited to talk about this movie, so really glad we got to have this discussion.
Yeah, this was excellent discussion. Thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, go check out all the stuff you're doing. You've got your hands in so many things, and very exciting stuff. You, as far as IPC goes, you can follow us at IPC Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can follow Zach at Zach the Voice, and literally everywhere. I think he's got the branding down. Okay, so very jealous of that very unique titling. And you can follow me at Ben Hart with no E on the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, even though I'm still not tweeting. This is my protest. I'm protesting. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just bored. I'm just trying to, for my own mental health, just trying to stay away from that site for a little bit.
Yeah, you're protesting the Grand Inquisitor's look.
Man, y'all see, you're gonna be glad that I'm not on Twitter, because I would be complaining about that constantly. I'm not adding to that dumpster fire of a discussion.
Right.
Lord. You can also follow me at the Star Wars Underworld at the SWU. We do a show every single Thursday, 9:30 p.m. I should say, on YouTube, over on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. Yeah, go check it out. It's fun. We talk about the recent episodes about the Kenobi trailer, which if we didn't have the Batman, that's probably what we would have been discussing tonight. But yeah, there's a lot to be discussed elsewhere. And also follow me at Culture Slate, doing all kinds of crazy stuff over there. Definitely go check that out. You can also find IPC on the aforementioned Patreon. Patreon.com/IPC podcast is where you can throw a buck or two at us and support the show and get something back for us. That's great. You can find us on Podbean. IPCpodcast.podbean.com is where all of our episodes are, all the audio episodes are. I will give you an update. I'm sorry, the previous episode is still in production. Okay, I'm sorry. It's gonna come eventually. Okay, I'm usually not this late, but life's been crazy. So, but you can watch it on YouTube. No, it's not on YouTube. That one was recorded on Facebook. It's on Facebook. Okay, just go to facebook.com/IPC podcast. You will find it. No big deal. You can find our swag at tpublic.com/user/IPC podcast. Find Barbecue Watch t-shirts and all kinds of crazy stuff. Coasters, I think. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I haven't quite checked what they've added recently, but yeah, that's right. And then also, finally, iTunes and really any podcatcher that has like a rating system and like reviews. Leave us a good review because not all reviewers are kind. Some of them are just mean for no reason and they leave a 1-star review. And we're like, what the hell? We gave you a free podcast and you gave us a 1-star review. What the heck? So yeah, be a nice person and help bump us up in the rankings and leave us a 5-star review. And you don't have to say anything, whatever. Just we appreciate that, if nothing else. iTunes specifically is one of the bigger ones. It's actually Apple Podcasts now. I keep saying iTunes. It's Apple Podcasts. There's no podcast on iTunes, I don't think, anymore. It's completely different. So yeah, that's all she really wrote for this podcast. Thanks to everyone for watching and coming on and yeah, I think we did it. The Batman was great. This podcast was great. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. I don't know what we'll be talking about. Maybe I do, though. Maybe I do. Maybe I know who will be here. I don't. Steven, you're always welcome back, but I think I'll have a different co-host in 2 weeks, and we'll be talking about something pretty darn interesting. But yeah, for Steven and Zach, wherever you are, my name is Ben. Thanks, everyone, so much for watching and listening. We love you so much, and we hope to see you back here in 2 weeks. But yeah, this has been episode number 343 of the IPC podcast. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to leave you right now. But before we leave you, we're just going to leave you with this thought. I don't have one queued up. What do I say? Oh, I got one. The enemy of your enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I just screwed that one up too. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. We hope you won't be our enemy and you will come back one day and be listen to our podcast or whatever. Zach used to do these things so well, and anytime he's away, I just screw him up. So I apologize, guys, and I will say thank you for putting up with my crap and good night.
Good night.
This podcast is sponsored in part by Benjamin Hart.
That's me.
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
And by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. IPC. IPC.
IPC.
IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you.